day the news dropped, that was when we realized the truth, our purpose of this war. Something worth fighting for. Sadly, we couldn't see what cause it will give. So we just fought with the fear within, but we never gave up for the people we lost.
Hey boys, I found a new reviewer who's going to go boycott us if we don't make a new sequel.
Well, don't just stand there. Shoot her before she gets away.
Oh shoot, that's right.
Jeez, why are there so many bad sales representatives? You see this, fellow viewers? This is the life of a critic reviewing games that are underrated. That reminds me, you're probably wondering what's going on. Well, let me tell you a little story. This is the war of sales and critics. It all traces down to April 24th, 2008. SEGA has released their latest game franchise, Valkyria Chronicles, for the PlayStation 3. Now, for those who don't know, Valkyria Chronicles is a strategy turn-based RPG with some third-person shooter elements combined. The mid to late 2000s were definitely a weird time for SEGA. Aside from the billions of Sonic games, their 2007-2008 lineup consisted of games like Condemned 2, Bloodshot for the PS3 and Xbox 360, Ghost Squad to Wii, and Happy Tree Friends. Can somebody explain that one? No? Okay. Anyway, to let you all know, this wasn't the first time SEGA considered a war-themed franchise. The earliest concept for Valkyria Chronicles was created in 2003, during discussions between director Shintaro Tanaka and producer Ryutaro Nanaka. They were both part of neighboring teams working on different games. Tanaka was finishing the GameCube port of Skies of Arcadia, while Nanaka was leading the production on Nightshade. The two wanted to work on something new. Tanaka once suggested a game themed around a dramatic war story. They considered using the Sekiro War franchise they had both worked on, but knew that they would face restrictions if they created something within that series, so they created a new story. Nanaka and Tanaka later said that the many similarities to Sekiro Wars were mainly because of shared development teams and gameplay styles rather than conscious choices. The world's period setting was based on Europe during the period before and during World War II during the 1930s to 1940s. This idea stayed since the beginning of development. The goal is to mix the setting with medieval elements, with the rest of the worldview and design springing from that point. Many levels included direct homages to events from World War II, including forest battles, an amphibious landing, and a fort line similar to the Magnio Line, one of the famous trenches used by the French during World War I. I think this is what Valkyria Chronicles is most famous for. The overall concept of the universe is cleverly made and unique. The world takes place during a time at war, but the technology isn't too advanced while magic, or whatever this is, can destroy anything. Did I ever mention I'm a history nerd? I absolutely love reading stories and different views from the people who lived around World War I and II. And after seeing what this game does with the universe, I think it's best to explain those key points while answering a very important question to you all. Let's begin.
Let's drive these Imperials back out of Gallia! Squad 7, move out!
Before I get into the great story and lore about the series, we must discuss the gameplay. The gameplay is pretty ambitious. You take control of a team, around 2 to 10 units, in a map. When you select one of the units, you go into a third-person view of them. You're able to run around the map, as long as your energy gauge isn't empty, attack enemies, and take cover behind buildings and sandbags. This is all played in a turn-based combat system, and each action you make, whether that be moving a unit or ordering a command, will take a CP point off of you until you either have no remaining or finish. I finished the game about a few months back, and I absolutely adore this game. The gameplay is fun and addicting, though snipers are way too powerful. Want proof? Here it is.
Nothing personal. Stupid Imperials!
Yeah, that must be nerfed in the next patch. On top of great gameplay, the art style is quite unique and good-looking. Valkyria Chronicles made use of a game engine dubbed Canvas. This engine was able to produce stylized graphics modeled on watercolor paintings. Nanaka wanted to blend traditional animation style with CGI elements. This is something he had previously experienced with the Neo CGI for Sekiro Wars 3 Is Paris Burning. Luckily, this worked. Its graphical style allowed for the emulation of hand-drawn artwork picked by staff once the game was moved to the PS3. A key figure in the engine's development for Valkyria Chronicles was Hirotaka Kanazawa. Kanazawa helped with the early map designs. A couple of the maps here are great, like the ship you fight Maximilian in, the final stage in Valkyria Chronicles 4, the Barious Desert, and so many more. But some are mixed bags. A lot of 2's maps are okay at best, due to the fact that they feel so linear. More on that will be mentioned, but the music in this game, oh the music, yes. The Valkyria Chronicles soundtrack is just as good as Tokyo Mirage Sessions. And when I compare it to TMS, it means it's something to not joke about. This music was handled by Hitoshi Sakamoto, a composer famous for his work on the Final Fantasy series and other projects through his company Bassescape. When told about the game, Sakamoto received an impression of militarism, and it shows throughout the soundtrack. It definitely seems like the team behind this were passionate for what they were doing. But that's not even touching the surface. Let's move on to the story and characters.
The old Brule, the town we used to know, Isara. We've lost them forever.
Welkin.
But it's like you said, Alicia. We build new things as we lose the old. If we can win this battle at Nagyar, we can push the Empire all the way back to Northeast Gallia. If that happens, then victory will be right around the corner. And once the war's over, the real work will start. We'll build a new mill plaza. In fact, we'll build a whole new town.
Right. And I'll be there to help you.
The game follows a story during the Second Europa War. A battle between the Federation and the Empire fighting for a material called Ragnite due to lack of it. Our protagonist, Welkin Gunther, was a university student before the war and is very strategic and apparently has a lot of knowledge of nature. He helps his companions over at his Federation squad to defeat the commander of the Empire and end the war once and for all. As for the other characters here, they're great. I'll keep this short since I could be here all day, but I'd rather not die. We have Welkin Gunther, which, aside from what I said earlier, he's quite a nature's man. A lot of the reasons he was able to win the war was because of his knowledge on nature and how it behaves. Ever since he got involved in the war, he always strived to bring peace to both nations again. There's Alicia, or me, a baker who entered the war to save her hometown. Sadly, the emotions caused by that incident caused me to gain the power of the Valkyria and kept thinking that fighting head-on is the only option, but it was thanks to Welkin, who... Hold on. This is too much. Okay, I'm back. So, some other characters who we have are Welkin's stepsister Isara, who is a Darson, I'm assuming it's like a race. Despite all that, she really cares about her friends. Her goal was to always show she can cooperate really well to the war no matter what. Sadly, this ends tragically with... I'll just show you.
Isara.
Yeah, this game is one of those types. Some other characters include Rosie. At first she seems to know it all and tries to look cool, but she has a passion to sing. Fun fact, she was one of the people who genuinely hated Isara because of her race. But later on she learned not to hate her for being a Darson. You could definitely see the emotion and pain she felt once that moment happened. Last but not least, on the main group we have Largo, the strong yet soft guy. He does his best to keep the group together motivated. And who could forget who I think is the most iconic character of the franchise, Valkyria Pllease. Valkyria is, in my opinion, a great villain for the first game. She's the first introduction to a true Valkyria and what they're capable of. Her entire motivation to even work for the Empire was because she was unable to live on her own as a child. But Maximilian, the main villain, helped her and raised her to only follow his orders. I'm not even going to make a joke about this. When I saw what happened to her at the end, I cried. She may be evil, but it wasn't her fault. She was just taking orders. Valkyria is officially my new favorite antagonist in a video game, and the characters overall felt like real people sacrificing themselves to end a tragic war. Let's just try and finish this. All in all, Valkyria Chronicles is an amazing entry and great introduction to what it is. It has great characters, gameplay, and what's not to love about this game? I never understood what made this franchise interesting, but after playing all the games, I can see why. If you love anime, history, and RPGs, this is a must for you. Now let's see how this game did during its release.
Bruh.
Oh, dang. I knew this game did okay at best, but how is it this bad? They must have messed up real hard to get these results. These numbers must have been okay back then, but now that would be almost a flop. I was doing my best to find any reasons for this effect, and I just couldn't find anything. My theory is that it's due to poor to no marketing, and the niche appearance and concept just didn't seem interesting for many players at the time. Luckily, that's where us reviewers came in. The game was a critical success, scoring as high as 84% on Metacritic. This made several other players interested and checked it out. Heck, it even got awarded for best graphics and artistic design. This amount of success in the game brought in manga and an anime adaptation, which was alright. But best of all, after 2 years since the first entry, this game got a sequel. I wonder how much better it sold compared to the first... I see. Well, what do the Japanese sales say about this? Huh, that's odd. Then why did it do so bad in the West? Let's see here. It says that this was released as a PSP exclusive. I guess that makes sense. Okay, so we got Valkyria Chronicles. First off, gameplay. After recently playing it, this is just Valkyria Chronicles, but a lot simpler compared to one. For example, you have a new class that uses only melee weapons. You have to switch between areas instead of traveling one big map. This was my main issue with the maps in here. In one, you had to be strategic and know where to strike. In here, it's often like, oh, just go to the new area and take them out. Funnily enough, snipers are just as overpowered as they come. And for story, the story felt a bit cliche here and there. It was combining time after the Second War of Europa, but the setting is taken at a high school. Really? Not only that, but to be honest, the characters were pretty stereotypical. Don't believe me? Here are my descriptions. Haven, generic protagonist who only came for a simple reason and rises to the top. Cosette, clumsy but cute blonde who helps the protagonist when she can. Zeri, smart yet serious character who somehow becomes likable in the end. Juliana, the popular kid, the elite, better than everyone else and looks down upon others. Just kidding, she's actually my personal favorite here and has good development. Okay, fine. Maybe these characters aren't super cliché at the end, but they still feel like a downgrade compared to the others. But hey, at least we got some cameos. That's nice. I would say more about this, but everything here is what I explained earlier, but a bit more different. So yeah, the game basically flopped because it was a PSP exclusive, and sadly not what many people still knew about the series. Even the ones who did have a PSP probably didn't like how this game turned out. And for some reason, say it with me, we critics saved the day. The game got an 83% in Metacritic and it continued on what made the original Valkyria Chronicles great, with a fresh new story. This caused SEGA to make a new Valkyria Chronicles, but not in the way you'd expect. It was on the PSP again, but as a Japan-only title. Why? I'll be honest here, and I played very little of 3 because I had to emulate it, but it's a lot better than 2. Not as close to 1 though. It contains similar mechanics to Valkyria Chronicles 2, but at least it has a slightly more enjoyable plot. I'ma make a Valkyria Chronicles 3 review if you guys really want my opinion when I finish this title. Though, to this day, Valkyria Chronicles 3 is a Japan exclusive, and as of now you can only use ROMs if you want to play an English version of it. You may be asking, how did that one do? Well, it surprisingly did better. It was released in January 2011, and by the end of the year, the game had sold over 152,500 units. Pretty impressive numbers considering it never released in the West. After those two games, Valkyria Chronicles just kinda disappeared. Except that one. That can be a video on its own. We didn't get any new mainline Valkyria Chronicles entries for over 4 years. Until that day happened. Due to heavy demand, on May 17, 2016, SEGA decided to remaster and publish the first Valkyria Chronicles for the PS4, while also sending it to other platforms like the Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch 2 years later. How did it go? Well, it was a success. It was selling fast. By April of 2018, the game almost reached 2 million units. So what did SEGA do as a response? They made a new and true sequel, Valkyria Chronicles 4, released March 21, 2018 for the PS4, and later released for the Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch. I recently finished it, and to be honest, say what you want, but this feels like a true sequel. The game fixed a lot of the issues I had with the original game, and overall feels much better and engaging. The game uses the same mechanics as Valkyria Chronicles 1, but adds a lot to it. And to no one's surprise, snipers are not only still overpowered, but they feel better and smoother. The story took a different direction and used the same timeline as 1, and gave it to the perspective of a different cast. We have new characters like Kai, who apparently made a deal with her brother to work for his place while he does some suspicious stuff in the background. There's also Claude. Despite being just another Welkin with his natural abilities, he's very enjoyable. Now Riley, she may just be another childhood friend character, but she wants to build a factory and use the skills her talent gave her after the war. Raz, the hotshot and aggressive one, and my personal favorite character, though he later learns to be a bit more calm and smart during the war. Sadly, another one who dies on us. Why, SEGA? Why do you keep killing the best characters? Anyway, you can have a new plot to tell with a new cast of characters along with a ton of additional content with DLC. And they put Sylvaria as a playable character with the swimsuit outfit! Yes! With such high demand and amazing reviews, this game must have been a critical and commercial success, right? Well, let's just read one of these articles. To the surprise of many JRPG fans, Valkyria Chronicles 4 appears to have fallen well below Sega's sales expectations in Japan in its first week of availability. According to Media Create's monthly analysis, the game has sold 62,921 units, which the site expects to be considered unsatisfactory, especially seeing as these figures show a 40% drop compared to the 2011 release of Valkyria Chronicles 3 on the PlayStation Portable, which shipped 103,000 units in its first week. Yikes. That is something. Well, sadly Valkyria Chronicles 4 didn't do as well as people thought it would. Again, I tried looking up some reasons for this. Some people argue that it lacked marketing, and others say there's better options today than back then. My two theories are there was way too much competition at the time. Spider-Man came out at the beginning of September, AC Odyssey in a week, Red Dead 2 in a couple of weeks, Fallout 76, and so on. On top of that, they released it a bit too soon for people to really care about the series. Why am I saying this? They released both Valkyria Chronicles 2 and 3 along the same year. This could have damaged a lot of the perception it used to have. The game could have done better if it was given a little more time and maybe better marketing. And yeah, that's the whole story of this whole war between critics and—
Any last words, critic? Alright guys, let's go get some drinks on—
Told you snipers are OP.
What's going on?
Alright guys, the coast is clear. Now's our chance.
12 seconds later.
Base capture. As I said, this really was a war between critics and bad sales. Oh, you're probably also wondering about what this entire war has to do with Valkyria Chronicles. Basically, we want the developers over at SEGA to make a sequel. So if people could spread the word back then, why not us?
Why are you taking so long? We need to get going.
You're watching Nintendo and stay focused.